Jeff Martin, great to talk to you about a pretty exciting project, Seven Deadly Sins.
I know. Yes. I think I know them all. So.
Well, that's pretty good, because I must admit, you did send me on a bit of a research exercise to just work out these seven deadly sins, what they are, what they're all about. And, in my quest to discover the seven deadly sins, I discovered there were originally 8.
Yeah. Okay. Are there? Yeah. So what's the 8th one? Because I missed that.
Well, that I can answer for you, because I've done my homework here. The seven deadly sins originated out of Christian Egypt. And it was around 590 AD when there were 8 seven deadly sins. They took sorrow and merged that with sloth. Then they took vain and merged that into pride. That left 6, so they had to bring a new one in. And the late arrival into the seven deadly sins was envy.
Well, there we go. Do you know, what's interesting, Paul, is that I spent a couple months in Egypt, in Luxor, and then across the Nile, in the Valley of the Kings, there was probably the first Coptic Christian church, which is Egyptian Christian, right? And I actually did a pilgrimage there. So, there we are.
Wow. Well, that area of the world has been quite inspirational for your entire career, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it has, yes. Especially, the music from the Middle East, like Egyptian rhythms and, artists like Kulthum, those melodies in the early days of the Tea Party really played a part of, I guess, what would be, our signature, and it remains so to this day. Like, it's just, but with the seven deadly sins, and speaking about the Edges of Twilight, I don't think that I've done a record since the Edges of Twilight that has really gone that deep into those melodies, those rhythms, not only from Egypt, but from Morocco, also from India, from Turkey. So, man, all the food groups are there.
Well, you definitely kicked it off, with lust. Şehvet Nora.
Yeah, so Şehvet is actually a Turkish word. It means, Şehvet is, another word for lust, that's sort of that intense lust. And then Nora is an old Gaelic word that means love and light.
Yeah, well, lust is definitely my favorite of these seven deadly sins, and probably the song and the sin.
Are you speaking from personal experience?
Yeah, but I guess, to do a project of this caliber, there has to be a lot of research that goes into this. I mean, how did you construct the songs so that you articulated the meaning of each one of the topics as you went along?
I'm going to try to give you the Reader's Digest version. Okay. So first of all, my manager, Tim Pellegrino, he came up with the concept because, the solo record prior to the Seven Deadly Sins was a record called Cinnamon Rose. And that did quite well. But Cinnamon Rose was more of I was exploring more like gospel, blues. I even, on one track called Havana, explored my love of Latin American music, right? But Tim brought it to my attention that as much as my fans loved Cinnamon Rose, what they were craving was for me to kind of dive deeply back into, like a darker Middle Eastern sort of situation. And so Tim actually came up with the concept of the seven deadly sins. And then he left it to me to figure it all out, right? So what I ended up doing was, okay, I have this predilection, if you will. Have you heard of synesthesia?
No.
Okay, well, synesthesia is where you, for some people, like you see music in colors, okay? And so what I ended up doing with the Seven Deadly Sins was I created the music first. So I created the the soundtrack for Lust, but I didn't know it was going to be Lust. I just created a song, and then I created the other six, and then I sat back and I listened to the seven of them, and I figured out kind of I'm listening to the emotion that's coming from the music. I'm seeing colors, and then I figured out which one would be associated with which sin. And then from there, that's when I started to create the lyrics for each one of the songs.
So did you actually sequence the music pieces at that point before you'd actually written the lyrics?
No, I had to like just wait until it came down from the ether, as far as the lyrics were concerned, and then put it all together.
So has the order of these songs on the album been done with the purpose of actually performing this as an entire piece?
That's a good question, because I haven't performed it yet, but that's pretty much what I'm going to do. I have some shows coming up starting in early September. It's not many. I think it's maybe 5. But what I'm going to do for this first attempt at the Seven Deadly Sins is there's this incredible drummer out of Melbourne. The band 12 Foot Ninja?
Oh, yeah.
Russ, the drummer in that band, he is he's like a musical octopus when he's playing live. So he's got his trigger pad that he can trigger the sounds, and in order for him and I to just perform the songs as a duo, right? So that's what I've been starting to do in the studio. Like, I'm trying to get all the sounds in a way that Russ will be able to, hit them on his pad, and essentially it's still live. It's not like we're playing to backing tracks. Everything is live, right? But we still haven't rehearsed yet, so we're getting there. But I think, like in theory, I think it's all going to work out. So.
Because I guess, with, what effectively we have here as a concept album, I guess you would call it, wouldn't you? Because you've got a common theme going through the entire album.
Yeah.
It may sound a bit strange to, perform this on shuffle.
It would, yes, I think so. Like I said, like once him and I get together in early August and we rehearse for the first time, I believe that the way that the Seven Deadly Sins is presented should be the way that we play it. And then, of course, well, that's only 7 songs. So then we're going to probably do things from my back catalog, my solo career, and most probably a couple Tea Party gems just to round it out.
So Seven Deadly Sins, it started off as a recording project in September 2021. Had you been working on the concept prior to that?
Nope. Essentially what happened was, again, my manager, Tim Pellegrino, this was during COVID. Okay. So a lot of touring artists like myself, well, we couldn't tour, and so we had to find ways of, bringing some income in while we were sitting on our hands. And so Tim came up with a Possible campaign. And the Possible campaign basically just reached out to all of my fans, my solo work. And like I said, Tim had been receiving all of these comments, that yes, they loved Cinnamon Rose, but when will Jeff delve back into the quote unquote darkness and, all of those exotic instruments and those sounds and melodies from those different parts of the world that, the Tea Party, my writing is so well known for. And so this Possible campaign that Tim launched, was hugely successful. And so I felt a deep humility from what people gave to my family, and also a responsibility to make it exactly what they wanted. But in turn, it turned out that when I initially started the recording process, I remembered how much I missed and how much I loved those parts of the world. And so, like, for instance, the house that Melissa and I have up here on the Sunshine Coast, it's beautiful, but it's kind of like it's the best music store you've ever seen, the most exotic music store, right? All these instruments, like, on stands and hanging on the walls, and in my studio, all the instruments I collected from my travels, like from Morocco and from India and from Egypt and from Turkey. And so I had Melissa just start ordering strings, right? Because I'm taking them down now and I'm using everything. And I was like a kid in a candy store again. Like, I just enjoyed the process so much.
Obviously, you won't be taking all those out on the road, though.
Nope, not at all. They don't belong on the road, so it's it's a compromise, because yes, you can use these things in a controlled environment, but especially here in Australia with the difference in humidity from state to state and all that, like, they just do not want a part of it. They don't want a bar of it, and don't travel well. So
September 2021, you go into the studio, and it'll be, around that time, 2023, when you get to perform. It's been like a full-on 2 years from the creation through to the performance.
Yeah, yes, it has. And there's a funny story about that, because the thing is, as we've discussed, it was a concept. And for me, as an artist, it was the first time that I had ever worked towards a concept, right? Usually my records would be, or Tea Party records, it's coming from my life experience, so I'm telling stories from my life experience. But when it came to the 7 Deadly Sins, well, like, I've read Dante's Inferno and all that, but, like, you have to then become, you have to go into character. It's not necessarily from a truthful point of view, right? So you're, you just become something else. You have to become something else. And it took me a while, especially when it came to writing the lyrics. It took me a while. Like, the music came pretty quickly, but the lyrics, I had to really dive pretty deep into my my studies in, like, occult philosophy, things like that, because I needed to get every song right. Now, funny story is this: the last song that I did was Sloth, right? And my intention with Sloth was that it was going to be an instrumental. It was going to be, like my love for Daniel Lanois's production and Brian Eno, when the two of them would get together, right? I wanted to do something like that, but just keep it instrumental for the last song on the record. Now, Melissa, my wife, and Tim, my manager, were kind of, in a very nice way, but they were kind of getting at me like, can we just get this across the line? Can we finish this record, please? Right? And so I'm working on Sloth, and all of a sudden, I got my console and I'm listening back to these ambient guitars and everything, and all of a sudden a melody starts to come through. And I'm like, oh, fuck. All right, now I guess I'm going to sing something, right? And whenever I would leave to, for instance, if I had to go away to Canada to tour the Tea Party, Melissa would always say to me, if I'm heading off in the airports and we're saying goodbye, she would say to me that, honey, you're safe amongst the stars. So now that is coming to me as I'm listening to Sloth. And I also realize that Tim and Melissa are getting a little bit frustrated with how long this is taking, right? So it's perfect, Sloth, and I move so slow, right? And there it is. And that was the last song.
Wow. One of the songs on here, the song about wrath, So Bitter, you've actually brought in some partners to help you with this one.
Yes. Well, so the lyrics and the music, a dear friend of mine, Paul Drennan, who has been for many years the promoter of Tea Party tours here in Australia. He lives in Adelaide. He's a musician as well. And this is a song that he actually wrote for Alice Cooper, because Paul Drennan would be Alice Cooper's promoter when Alice would come over here and tour in Australia. And the demo that he sent to Alice, Alice loved the song, but he just decided to pass on it. And so then Paul brought it to me, and I was doing a couple of solo shows in Adelaide, and I had a little bit of time off, a couple of days. So I went into a studio in Adelaide and recut the vocals, did a little bit of guitar work, and but then left it at that. So this is probably about 3 years ago, maybe 4. And then when it came to compiling this record, The 7 Deadly Sins, I just, by happenstance, I happened to listen to that demo that I had done for Paul, and I thought to myself, this would be such a great inclusion on The 7 Deadly Sins, and to do with the sin wrath, like that anger of being betrayed, the words that Paul Drennan wrote. And so with his permission, I started from scratch, and I changed some of the lyrics, but I certainly, all the music was done from scratch, and changed the production style to make it more, well, obviously my own thing. And once I completed the song and I sent it to Paul Drennan, he said point blank that he was in tears. Well, that song is very powerful. I need people to know, though, that it's not me. I'm not singing about myself in that song. It's Paul's story. I'm just amplifying it.
So we've got the 7 in there: lust, gluttony, wrath, greed, envy, pride, and sloth. That wraps them all up. Put them all in a hat and pick out your favorite one to do tonight.
Yeah, exactly right. For me, it changes, because obviously as the producer of the records, like I said, I've had to listen to test pressings and this and that, and so when I do get a chance to listen to the Seven Deadly Sins, every time I listen through, there's a new favorite for my listening pleasure, and I think right now my favorites is actually Envy, but that'll change.
Looking forward to hearing it live. We will hear it recorded way before that. And how much of the next 12 months will you devote to this? And when will the Tea Party reactivate again?
Oh, well, okay. That's twofold. So here's my plan. Eventually, what I want to do, and I'm hoping to do this early next year, maybe March or April, but for the Seven Deadly Sins, I actually want to put a full band together, a 5-piece band, because one of my best friends, Darren Evans, he played drums on Seven Deadly Sins, and he's an amazing drummer, the big John Bonham drum kit, right, and all that. And I would love to put a 5-piece band together with Darren on drums and with some of my best friends that live around the area that are incredible musicians. But I've got to work towards that. So that's why these first 4 or 5 shows that I'm going to do in September, it's just going to be Russ from 12 Foot Ninja and myself, just to get the momentum started. But I do want to move it into a 5-piece band in the new year. So we have to just see where it goes. But as far as the Tea Party is concerned, I am flying back to Canada in early October, and we're doing a big national tour across Canada with our friends. There's another great Canadian rock band called I Mother Earth. So them and ourselves, we are going to go across Canada and make people happy. And then next year, we're looking at the Tea Party coming back here to Australia, probably in the late winter of next year.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're going to be a very busy man then, Jeff Martin.
Yeah, well, keeping me out of trouble, that's for sure.
Making up for those 2 lost years we had in 2020 and 2021.
Right.
Yeah. Good to talk to you. The album Seven Deadly Sins. Jeff Martin, thanks for joining us at Noise 11.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.